Join us on Patreon and become part of our journey to uncover history's untold stories. Your support helps us create in-depth content, bring hidden narratives to life, and keep history alive for everyone.
The island of Tasmania, situated off the southern coast of mainland Australia, is often celebrated for its rugged landscapes, breathtaking wilderness, and unique biodiversity. Yet, beneath its natural beauty lies a haunting and compelling story, a tale of survival, resilience, and tragedy that remains one of the most obscured chapters in human history. This is the story of the Tasmanian Aboriginals, a people whose culture and existence were nearly erased by the forces of colonization and violence, but whose legacy continues to echo in the land, the waters, and the collective memory of their descendants. For thousands of years, long before European explorers ever set their sights on the southern hemisphere, the Tasmanian Aboriginals thrived on this isolated island. They developed a way of life intimately connected with the environment, shaped by the unique challenges and bounties of their land. Their society was rich with traditions, their knowledge of the natural world profound, and their spiritual connection to the land unwavering. Yet, by the mid-19th century, the Tasmanian Aboriginal population had been decimated, victims of one of history's most chilling examples of systemic violence and cultural erasure. What makes their story particularly poignant is how it has been obscured, romanticized, and in many ways forgotten. For centuries, their narrative was shaped by colonial accounts that portrayed them as primitive, doomed, or even extinct. These myths served as justifications for the atrocities committed against them and perpetuated a silence that would last for generations. Only recently have efforts been made to uncover the truth, to listen to the voices of the Tasmanian Aboriginals, to honor their history, and to confront the uncomfortable realities of colonization. This exploration of the hidden history of the Tasmanian Aboriginals seeks to delve deep into their origins, culture, and the devastating impact of European settlement. It aims to illuminate their story with honesty and respect, acknowledging the resilience of their descendants, who continue to fight for recognition, justice, and the preservation of their heritage. Through understanding their past, we not only honor their memory, but also gain a deeper insight into the broader consequences of colonization, racism, and cultural suppression. To truly grasp the significance of their history is to engage with the ongoing struggle for truth and reconciliation, a struggle that transcends Tasmania and resonates with Indigenous communities worldwide. The history of the Tasmanian Aboriginals begins tens of thousands of years ago, during a time when Tasmania was not an island but part of the Australian mainland. Archaeological evidence suggests that the ancestors of the Tasmanian Aboriginals first arrived in the region over 40,000 years ago, traveling across the land bridge that connected Tasmania to the rest of the continent. This bridge was submerged around 10,000 years ago due to rising sea levels, isolating Tasmania and its inhabitants from mainland. This isolation had profound implications for the development of Tasmanian Aboriginal society. Cut off from external influences, their culture evolved in unique ways, adapting to the island's distinct environment. Archaeological sites such as Kudikina Cave and Warragara provide glimpses into their ancient way of life, revealing a people deeply attuned to their surroundings. They were skilled hunters, utilizing tools and techniques that allowed them to thrive in Tasmania's often harsh climate. Their diet included wallabies, seals, and a variety of plant foods, all sourced with a sustainable approach that ensured the continued abundance of resources. The spiritual beliefs of the Tasmanian Aboriginals were similarly rooted in their environment. They viewed the land, sea, and sky as interconnected, imbued with spiritual significance. Every mountain, river, and forest held stories and meanings that were passed down through generations. This profound connection to the land was not merely practical but deeply spiritual, shaping their identity and worldview in ways that defy simplistic interpretation. When Dutch explorer Abel Tasman became the first European to sight Tasmania in 1642, he described the land as beautiful and untouched, noting signs of habitation but encountering no people. Over a century later, British expeditions began arriving, bringing with them not only new technologies and goods but also diseases, attitudes, and intentions that would irrevocably alter the lives of the Tasmanian Aboriginals. By the late 18th century, British settlers began to establish colonies on the island. To the colonists, Tasmania represented a land of opportunity, ripe for farming, forestry, and other industries. However, to the Tasmanian Aboriginals, these settlers were invaders disrupting their way of life. The introduction of European agriculture destroyed traditional hunting grounds and sacred sites. Livestock trampled native plants, and fences divided lands that had been communally shared for millennia. The cultural differences between the two groups were vast, and the colonists' lack of understanding or interest in Aboriginal customs and beliefs exacerbated tensions. To the settlers, the Tasmanian Aboriginals were an impediment to progress, a perception that soon fueled violent conflict. The period known as the Black War, 1820s-1830s, marked one of the darkest chapters in Tasmanian history. As colonial settlements expanded, clashes between settlers and Aboriginal groups escalated into a full-scale conflict. The settlers, armed with firearms and supported by government policies, launched violent campaigns to drive the Aboriginals from their lands. The Tasmanian Aboriginals resisted fiercely, using their knowledge of the terrain to conduct guerrilla-style attacks. Yet, they faced insurmountable odds. Diseases introduced by the settlers, such as smallpox and influenza, had already decimated their population, leaving them weakened and vulnerable. The colonists' superior weaponry and resources ensured that the resistance could not be sustained. Government-sanctioned actions further compounded the devastation. In a bid to remove the Tasmanian Aboriginals from the land, colonial authorities launched what became known as the Black Line, a coordinated military operation aimed at corralling the remaining Aboriginal population into a confined area. The operation was brutal and dehumanizing, leading to widespread suffering and loss of life. By the mid-19th century, the surviving Tasmanian Aboriginals were forcibly relocated to Flinders Island under the pretense of protection. Conditions on the island were harsh, and many died from disease, malnutrition, and despair. This relocation marked the near-total destruction of their traditional way of life, as well as the beginning of a narrative that falsely claimed the Tasmanian Aboriginals were extinct. For much of the 20th century, the prevailing narrative was that the Tasmanian Aboriginals had been completely eradicated. This myth served as a convenient justification for the atrocities committed during colonization, absolving colonial powers of responsibility and erasing the survivors from public consciousness. However, this narrative was far from the truth. Descendants of the Tasmanian Aboriginals continued to live on, preserving their heritage and resisting the forces of assimilation. Families maintained oral histories, passed down cultural knowledge, and fought tirelessly for recognition. Their existence challenged the myth of extinction and forced a re-examination of Tasmania's history. In recent decades, there has been a growing acknowledgement of the injustices faced by the Tasmanian Aboriginals. Activists, scholars, and community leaders have worked to uncover and share their stories, ensuring that their voices are heard and their culture celebrated. Land rights campaigns, cultural revitalization projects, and educational initiatives have become key components of this movement, highlighting the resilience and strength of the Tasmanian Aboriginal community. The hidden history of the Tasmanian Aboriginals is a testament to the enduring impact of colonization and the resilience of Indigenous peoples. It is a story of profound loss, but also of survival and hope. By uncovering and confronting this history, we honor the memory of those who were lost and celebrate the resilience of those who continue to fight for justice and recognition. In remembering the Tasmanian Aboriginals, we are reminded of the importance of truth-telling and the need to confront uncomfortable realities. Their story is not just a chapter in Tasmania's history, but a vital part of the broader human narrative, one that calls us to reflect on the consequences of our actions and the enduring strength of the human spirit. As we move forward, let us ensure that their voices are no longer silenced and that their legacy is preserved for future generations.